And I am a sophomore in business administration with a concentration in marketing and hopefully a minor in psychology.
Hi guys, thanks for doing this. I'm Emma. I'm a sophomore in industrial engineering and English, language writing, and rhetoric.
Hey everyone, I'm Darian, and I'm a sophomore in textile technology with a concentration in medical textiles.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go over is 3 quick learning outcomes, and this is just what we really want y'all to take away from this presentation. We want you to learn how to develop professional relationships, get to know the 8 ways to overcome fears, and learn how to build a recommendation folder.
Alright, so we're going to kick things off with a little activity. We do have a beach ball. We're just going to toss it around the room. And we're going to ask that you guys participate a little bit. And so when the beach ball's tossed to you, ask that you say your name. My name is Darian. And I'm going to ask you guys to throw out a fear to me. Just a random fear. Anyone?
Ladybugs.
Yeah. Alright. So, I'll remember you though. Okay. My name is Darian and I have a fear of ladybugs, okay? So to overcome that fear of ladybugs, I will plan to avoid environments where ladybugs live. I will walk around their ladybug homes. I will not look them in the eye. I will go the other direction. Alright? So you guys get to just live a little bit. You get a fear and then you say how you would overcome that. And it goes around the room. Alright? You want to go?
My name is Vincent. I'm going to directly address the point that we're going to be talking about faculty and how terribly intimidating it can be contacting somebody who doesn't really know you, especially if it's outside of your department. And I think familiarity is the way to do that, just going out and actually speaking to them. And that will slowly erode the fear.
Action.
Yes. So, exposure. Anybody else want to call?
Talking back there.
My name is Nicholas Womack, and a fear of mine is that I will not get like the answer that I'm looking for, like when I email a professor or that person to talk to them, and I'm not like prepared. So I guess I can overcome that by just putting more time into my questions and really trying to find out. So when I go there, I'm not so lost.
Great.
So if you didn't hear, he said a way to overcome fears is by putting more time into conquering your fear?
Yeah, so
Putting more effort, yeah.
for example, like if you're going to asking them about like a research lab mentor or something like that, but you don't know like anything about their lab or about their publications or anything, like just go and like read some publications before, or maybe visit some of their websites. Just so you know, don't go there with like just nothing.
Be prepared, yeah. That's a good one.
What else was there?
And then on this side.
And if you don't want to say a fear, you can say a way to overcome a fear.
Right.
Just a general way. I'm gonna pick someone. Don't make eye contact. Oh, you're making eye contact.
I would say a way to overcome fear. I would say you have to don't engage in negative talk. So like if you know you're having fear about something, don't continue to like put yourself down or stop thinking of like the negative things that can happen. Just try to like be more positive.
Like yourself out.
One more.
Who wants to give you a fear? Any ideas, people? You got to do one last time.
School related?
Doesn't have to be.
Airplanes.
Alright. So she wanted to watch them take off.
So she was sort of distracting herself from the actual plane, and then I guess we could twist that into saying she was going to her friends for comfort, right? Yeah? Okay.
Great job, y'all.
Okay, so guys just said some really good fears and some really great ways to overcome them. And then when we're dealing with this topic of recommendation letters and getting referrals and things like that, the most common fear is the fear of rejection. And I did hear that a few times. You might be thinking, what if they don't like me? What if they don't think I'm qualified? Something I tell myself for this is the worst that could happen is they say no, but think of what's the best thing that could happen. And that always makes me want to just go for it, you know? It's really not going to affect you too much later in your life if they say no to you. I know it might sound scary at the beginning, but it'll definitely be fine, and the outcome may be really great. So we're going to give some ways to overcome fear.
Okay, so the first way to overcome a fear is just to plan for it. So a good way, like it'll help you gain control of the situation. This plan can be mental, or if you're like me, you might want to write it down and keep it somewhere that's easily accessible. It's something that you can call on. And having a plan written out is just a really great way to look at something as a whole, and it looks a lot less scary when you can write everything down and have it in one place. And once you have your plan, the next step is to take action. So pick something on your plan and get it done. So get something done, get the ball rolling, and you'll feel a lot better. So action kills fear and builds confidence.
Or you could also take breaks from a stressful situation. Fear is stressful. Has anyone in here ever lost something and then found it hours later when they weren't even looking for it? Exactly. Your mind was kind of on a mental break from looking for the item, and you were able to kind of refocus and then find it later. Sometimes I like to just take breaks from schoolwork and go for a walk or watch Netflix. Sometimes those breaks run a little too long, but they do help me in the long run. This is probably my favorite way to kind of deal with fear, is just to get inspired often, do things that make you happy. I like to listen to motivational songs whenever I'm gearing up for something big, like doing a launch like this. Also, I just learned about power posing for 30 minutes in the mirror. It sounds goofy, but standing like this and looking at yourself, knowing that you're the stuff, that just brings confidence to a whole new level, and that's really helpful.
Okay, another way is to remember your past successes. So if you're sort of feeling down on yourself and afraid, just remember that you've overcome obstacles in the past and you can do it again. You can even think, if it's sort of like a similar situation, how you overcame in the past and see if you can apply it at all. And then another way is to also give yourself a lot of options. If you really want to go to grad school and that doesn't happen, maybe you can take a year off, or if you wanted to come to this launch and it didn't work out, you can go to the launch tomorrow. Anything like that, just make sure you have a lot of options and you won't feel as pressured.
So the next way to overcome fear is to use comparisons wisely. So the way we thought of this is that the only healthy way to compare yourself to someone is as a source of inspiration. So to look at someone who's maybe on the same track as you, but a couple steps ahead, and use their path and their goals as kind of your own, and help you learn from them, so to get you started on their path if that's a path that you're interested in. And the last way is to regain perspective. So this kind of goes with the one that Darian was talking about, to take a break. You just need to take a step back and refocus on what's really important to you, what do you want from this experience, and try not to let the worry and the fear overcome you so much that you can't get anything done. So by regaining that perspective, you can get a handle on your fear a lot better. So what's next? We're going to talk to you guys about how to approach a faculty member and in a way that's not that scary.
And do you guys have any questions so
Yes.
far? About fears or anything? All right.
So the first question to ask yourself is, who will I approach? You don't want to approach someone that doesn't really know you or that doesn't really like you, because you want a good recommendation. So some good people to follow are faculty, supervisors, and professionals, because you kind of it's a good idea to have an academic reference, a professional reference, and a personal reference. So that falls on your teachers, your supervisors at work, or even a colleague.
Okay, so that's me looking good. First impressions, and you want to make sure you act professionally whenever you're trying to get a recommendation. Even if you're going to class, you don't want to look bummy all the time, and I know I definitely go bummy to class all the time, so just make sure, especially when you're going to talk to the teacher after class, maybe get office hours, that's when you want to be professional. Also, we gave you a little handout about email etiquette, so you want to email them professionally, and then you will be attentive and engaged. So just act professional.
know if you're on your
Yeah.
phone or doing something
We'll
else.
see you.
And that will definitely reflect negatively. So like Cecily said, for email etiquette, we did give you guys a handout. We felt that it would be best served to give you something to take home to illustrate a good example and a bad example. And I think this is a especially good handout because a lot of times when we give out things that are good and bad, the bad ones are like very blatantly awful and things that most students like no one in a real situation would ever do that past like second grade. So this is a better example because it's subtle differences, but it just helps you step up your professional game just another level when interacting with like a professor or a faculty member over email. The main points of this: don't use slang, keep it concise, give them time to respond before following up. If it's been a very long time, it is okay to send a second email and say, hey, did you get my first email? I'm really wanting to talk to you about this, but make sure that it's not right away because that will turn a lot of people off. But also make sure that you're responding quickly as well, and that's just a good way to present yourself professionally online.
Alright, so some good ways to develop these relationships with your superiors. Already go to office hours. I didn't frequent office hours a lot last year, and I kind of regret it now that I have been going to office hours because I have a great relationship with my physics professor because there are like 100 students in my class, but he knows me by name. And I can probably use him as a reference going forward in the future. Clubs are also a good way to get connections with people. Your club president is a really good person to follow because they will have a personal relationship with you. They'll know how you operate in a group setting, and they could comment on that in a recommendation letter or a reference call. Also, for those of you who are not familiar with informational interviews, they're I like to think of them as a reverse regular interview. So I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with how you go to a job interview and the person may ask you to tell them about yourself, and then how would you describe yellow to a blind person? That was our off-the-wall question, but yeah. Now, for an informational interview, you would seek out that professional person or someone that's in a job that you want to go into, and you would ask them about that job and how the hours are, what's the wages, what kind of education you need to go into, what kind of education you need to have to go into that position. So it's more for you, but that person's also getting to know you, and that builds up a connection that you can carry on to the future as well.
So once you get these connections, it's really important to keep them up. It's really good if you have a teacher you even had 4 years ago, if you're still talking to them. That means you really kept up your relationship well. So if you contact them frequently, whether through email, social media, and by that we mean LinkedIn, maybe if they're closer to you, it could be Facebook, but probably not Snapchat or anything like that. And on LinkedIn, you can even just like if they got a new job or anything like that, just to show them that you're keeping track of what they're doing, and then they'll want to keep track of what you're doing, and it builds that back and forth. You're sort of caring about each other.
So we're going to go over how to ask for a recommendation. These are the steps you're going to want to take. So it is acceptable to send an email to coordinate a meeting time to ask for this recommendation, but you want to do the actual asking in person. We always recommend that you ask things like this in person because emails can get lost, they can get overlooked, any number of things can happen. And this way, they'll respond immediately. You'll get an instant yes or no, for the most part. You'll get an instant yes or no. And you're going to want to bring a recommendation folder to this initial meeting as well. And we'll go over what that is in a minute. But to make sure you have that straight off the bat, it's going to show how prepared you are and how much you want this recommendation from them. And then after your meeting, you're going to want to connect with them on LinkedIn if you haven't already. And always send a handwritten thank you note afterwards. It shows that you're really dedicated. You've really you're putting in as much effort as you want them to put in. So effort in is effort out. And now we are going to go into a little skit where Darian is asking his professor for a recommendation.
Okay. I'm not a great actress, by the way.
I'm amazing.
Yeah, he's really good.
So, Darian approaches his teacher to ask for a recommendation.
Hi, Miss Sonner. Will you write a letter of recommendation for this internship?
Darian was pretty confident his teacher would agree, considering he made an A+ in the class. However, he sat in the back and barely raised his hand. This was the first time he spoke one-on-one to his teacher. This is what went through her head.
I barely know this student. How am I supposed to write a whole letter about him? I have hundreds of students, and so many ask me who I don't know well. I know. I will change Sarah Smith's letter out and put Darian's name instead of hers. What is your name again?
It's Darian.
Oh, right.
Darian knew he could have done some things better.
I shouldn't have asked this teacher for my letter of recommendation. She doesn't even know my name. That letter's going to be so generic and not have any substance to it whatsoever.
Just because he got a good grade in the class does not mean that his letter will be powerful. It is better to get a letter from a teacher who knows you better, even if you got a B in their class. Darian's teacher wishes her students would help her out more.
I have too many students ask me for a letter. I'm happy to do them, but I wish they would give me more information on what they would like in the letter. No one knows a student better than they know themselves.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. So how could Darian have gotten to know this teacher better, maybe before this initial meeting?
Office hours.
Office hours, okay, that's a good one. Anything else? Yeah.
Maybe you could decide in the front of the class that we should recommend.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Some good facial recognition there.
Regularly answering questions in class.
Yeah, definitely.
Participation.
And so, in this meeting, what information should he have given her, do you think?
What the recommendation letter is for. Like, I'm trying to do this. Help me out with this that way.
Yeah, that's good. So what is actually going to be a recommendation for?
A resume.
A resume, that's really good, yeah. Anything else?
How that class pertains to the internship.
Okay, that's
ostensibly
good.
it would have been something at least something.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, and what could Darian do next to get a better recommendation letter now that he's asked for this one? There's no backing out.
Participate more in class.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Okay, so with this specific professor, you could definitely follow up by, doing the cultivating relationship activities that we talked about already. So, asking her to get coffee or to sit down and talk with her more one-on-one and get to know her better so that she can get to know him better. There are definitely ways to mitigate this situation without completely backing out. But asking another teacher is also a very good idea. So those are the options that we talked about.
Also, I heard someone say about sitting closer to the front in class. Do y'all know about the learning tee? Alright, so when you're in a lecture hall, the teacher is standing right here. The T is the first 2 or 3 rows, and then the middle. And those are the people that they're likely to remember. So just keep your talking.
Okay.
Alright, so in the skit, did y'all notice that Ms. Sonner was very apprehensive about writing my recommendation letter? Alright. That was because when you're writing a recommendation letter, people are expecting you to know about all these things, or most of these things, regarding the person that you're recommending. So if she doesn't know my name, she's probably not going to know anything about personal hygiene. She's not going to know about my leadership skills or my communication skills. So it's important that the person that you're asking does have an idea of how competent you are in these qualities. And to give us perspective from someone who has written many recommendation letters, we have Dr. Lori Goshaw.
Thanks. Can you go back to the previous slide? Because I'd like you to see that. So I've had many students ask me for recommendations, and unfortunately I've had situations where I panicked, like you did, because I just didn't have enough information about the student. So a couple of pointers when you're thinking about asking somebody for recommendation, give them about 2 to 3 weeks notice, if you can, to write that recommendation, because we're all very, very busy, and writing a letter of recommendation is something that I personally take as a great, huge responsibility.